The wagon jolted to a stop at the edge of the property, and Tarka knew this was where they would leave her, just as they had left her mother's bones to bleach in the sun after the last border skirmish. The human delegate, a thin man with nervous hands, gestured toward the modest farmhouse in the distance, surrounded by fields that stretched toward a dense forest. "He lives there," the man said, not meeting her eyes. "Kendrick Ashford, war veteran. He agreed to take you as part of the peace terms between our settlement and your clan." Tarka climbed down from the wagon without assistance, her bare feet hitting the dirt road with a solid thud. She wore the only dress her clan had given her for this occasion, a rough spun gray thing that hung awkwardly on her muscular frame. At 20 years old, she stood taller than most human women, with green skin that caught the afternoon light, small tusks that protruded just slightly over her lower lip, and pointed ears that currently burned with humiliation. Her dark hair had been braided hastily that morning by her aunt, who had wept silently the entire time. "The chieftain said you are to serve him faithfully," the delegate continued, still avoiding her gaze. "Your obedience is part of the treaty. If you run or cause trouble, the peace is broken." "I understand," Tarka said, her voice steady despite the fear coiling in her stomach. She had heard stories about what human men did to orc women when they got them alone. Her mother had warned her about soldiers who saw orcs as nothing more than beasts to be conquered or killed. The delegate handed her a small bundle containing her few possessions, then climbed back onto the wagon with unseemly haste. As the wheels creaked into motion, leaving her standing in the road, Tarka felt the weight of her situation settle over her like a physical thing. She was a peace offering, a token to be traded, a thing to smooth over the violence that had claimed lives on both sides. Her clan had chosen her because she was not a warrior, not particularly beautiful by orc standards, and had no living parents to object. She walked slowly toward the farmhouse, taking in details that might help her survive. The fields were well tended, rows of crops growing in neat lines. A barn stood behind the house, weathered but solid. Chickens scratched in a yard enclosed by a wooden fence. Everything spoke of a man who worked hard and kept his property in good order. Perhaps that meant he would expect the same from her. Perhaps that was all he would expect. The front door opened before she reached it, and Kendrick Ashford stepped out onto the porch. Tarka stopped walking, her hands tightening on her bundle. He was tall for a human, broad-shouldered, with brown hair that fell just past his collar and a beard that looked recently trimmed. His face was weathered, lines around his eyes that could have come from squinting into the sun or from years of hardship. He wore simple clothes, a work shirt and trousers, and his feet were bare like hers. What struck her most was that he did not look angry or hungry or cruel. He looked tired and perhaps a little sad. "You must be Tarka," he said, his voice a deep rumble that carried across the yard. "I am Kendrick. Please come inside. You have had a long journey." She climbed the porch steps cautiously, watching for any sudden movement, but he simply held the door open and waited. As she passed him, she caught his scent, clean and human, mixed with the smell of wood smoke and bread. The interior of the house surprised her. It was clean, organized, with furniture that showed signs of careful craftsmanship. A fire burned in the hearth and a pot hung over it, something savory bubbling inside. "Are you hungry?" Kendrick asked, closing the door gently. "I made stew. There is plenty." Tarka turned to face him, searching his expression for mockery or deception. "You made stew," she repeated. "For me? Well, for both of us, technically. I eat every day, believe it or not." A small smile touched his lips, there and gone. "Please sit down." "I imagine they did not feed you much on the journey." He was right. She had eaten nothing since yesterday's thin porridge. Her stomach growled audibly, betraying her, and she saw his expression soften further. He moved to the fire and began ladling stew into wooden bowls. Tarka lowered herself onto a bench at the table, still clutching her bundle, ready to flee if this turned out to be some kind of trap. Kendrick set a bowl in front of her, steam rising from it, along with a thick slice of bread and a cup of water. Then he took his own bowl and sat across from her, not beside her, she noticed, giving her space. "Go ahead," he said. "You do not need to wait for permission." She picked up the spoon and tasted the stew carefully. It was good, rich with vegetables and chunks of meat, seasoned with herbs. She took another spoonful, then another, and soon she was eating steadily, her hunger overcoming her caution. Kendrick ate his own meal quietly, not staring at her, not demanding conversation. When she finished, he offered her more and she accepted, too hungry to pretend she did not want it. Only after her second bowl did she finally speak. "Why are you being kind to me?" Kendrick set down his spoon and leaned back slightly. "Why would I be unkind to you? I am an orc. You are human. Your people and mine have been killing each other for generations. I am here because your settlement demanded a hostage to ensure the peace." "I know why you are here," Kendrick said quietly. "I was the one who suggested it to the council." Tarka felt her body go cold. "You requested an orc woman." "No," he shook his head firmly. "I requested that if the treaty required any kind of exchange, it should be to me, and that the person sent should be treated as a guest, not a prisoner. I have a large house that I live in alone. I have more food than one person needs. I have space and resources." I thought that was better than some other possibilities. She stared at him, trying to understand. "You did this to protect whoever was sent." "I did this because I am tired of violence," Kendrick said, his voice carrying an edge of old pain. "I spent 10 years as a soldier on the border. I have seen what happens in war, what people do to each other. When the council said they wanted insurance against the treaty being broken, I knew what some men would do with an orc captive. So I volunteered to be the one to take responsibility." Tarka felt something shift in her chest, a small crack in the wall of fear she had built. "You were a soldier." "I was. I killed orcs. I watched friends die at orc hands. I have scars on my body from orc blades." He met her eyes steadily. "I also saw women and children slaughtered because they happened to live in contested territory. I saw men on both sides become monsters. I came home 3 years ago because I could not be part of it anymore. I wanted to build something instead of destroying." "So now you have an orc in your house," Tarka said, unable to keep the bitterness from her voice. "Your own personal peace project." Kendrick flinched slightly, and she was surprised to see that her words had struck him. "I have a person in my house," he said after a moment, "who did not choose to be here, who was sent by her people as a sacrifice to keep a fragile peace. I thought the least I could do was make sure she was safe and fed and treated with basic human decency. I am not human. No, you are not. But decency should not be limited to one's own kind." They sat in silence for a long moment, the fire crackling in the hearth. Tarka felt exhausted suddenly, the tension draining out of her body and leaving her hollow. She had prepared herself for violence, for cruelty, for subjugation. She had not prepared herself for kindness. "There is a room upstairs," Kendrick said, standing and collecting the empty bowls. "It has a bed, a chest for your things, and a door that latches from the inside. I thought you might want privacy and security. My room is downstairs, on the other side of the house." Tarka followed him up a narrow staircase to a small room under the eaves. It was simple but clean, with a real bed covered in quilts, a wooden chest, and a window that looked out over the fields. Kendrick set an oil lamp on the chest and showed her how to work the latch on the door. "If you need anything, you can come down or you can wait until morning," he said. There is no obligation, no expectations. You are safe here, Tarka. I give you my word." After he left, closing the door behind him, Tarka stood in the center of the room for a long time, listening to his footsteps descend the stairs, listening to him moving around below, the sounds of dishes being washed, the door opening and closing as he went out to do evening chores. She tested the latch 3 times, then sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress was stuffed with something soft, not straw. The quilts were thick and warm. Through the window, she could see the sun setting over the fields, painting everything gold and amber. She could hear chickens settling in their coop, the distant lowing of a cow. For the first time since she had learned she would be sent away, Tarka allowed herself to cry. She wept silently into her hands, mourning her lost home, her lost family, the life she would never have. She wept for her mother who had died defending their village from a human raid. She wept for herself, alone in a stranger's house, dependent on his mercy. But beneath the grief, there was a small, fragile spark of something else. Hope, perhaps, or at least the absence of immediate terror. The next morning, Tarka woke to the smell of cooking. She lay still for a moment, disoriented, before remembering where she was. Sunlight streamed through the window, and she could hear Kendrick moving around downstairs. She used the chamber pot she found under the bed, washed her face and hands in the basin on the chest, and braided her hair quickly before going down. Kendrick was at the stove, frying eggs in a pan. He looked up when she entered and nodded a greeting. "Good morning. Did you sleep well?" "Yes," Tarka admitted. The bed had been the most comfortable thing she had ever slept on. "Good. I am making breakfast. After we eat, I thought I could show you around the property if you like, help you get oriented." They ate together, the same easy quiet as the night before, and then Kendrick led her outside. The morning was cool and bright, the air smelling of earth and growing things. He showed her the barn where a brown cow and a goat lived. He showed her the chicken coop, the vegetable garden, the well with its bucket and rope. He explained his routine, how he tended the animals morning and evening, how he worked the fields during the day, how he maintained the buildings and fences. "You do all this alone?" Tarka asked, looking at the extent of his land. "I do. It is a lot of work, but I like it. It is honest work, building instead of tearing down." He glanced at her. "I do not expect you to work if you do not want to. You are not a servant here, despite what your clan or my people might think. But if you want to help, if it would give you something to do, I would appreciate the company and the extra hands." Tarka thought about sitting alone in the house all day while he worked. She thought about how her hands already itched for something productive, how idleness had always made her restless. "I could help," she said carefully. "I know how to tend animals. I know how to work a garden. My clan had farms too, before the war took so many of our people." Kendrick's face lit up with a genuine smile, and Tarka was startled by how much younger it made him look. "That would be wonderful. Thank you." So they worked together. Kendrick showed her how he liked things done, but he also listened when she suggested different methods, techniques her people used. He did not dismiss her knowledge or treat her like she was stupid. When she struggled with something unfamiliar, he was patient, demonstrating without condescension. When the sun grew hot, he brought them both water and insisted they rest in the shade. At midday, they ate bread and cheese under an oak tree at the edge of the field. Tarka watched Kendrick as he ate, noting the scars on his forearms, the calluses on his hands. "You said you have scars from orc blades," she said. "Do they bother you to have an orc here?" Kendrick considered the question seriously. "Sometimes I have nightmares," he admitted, "from the war. But they are not about orcs specifically. They are about violence, about loss. When I wake up and remember where I am, that I am home and safe, I feel better." He looked at her directly. You did not give me these scars, Tarka. You were not there. I do not hold you responsible for a war neither of us started." "My mother died in a human raid," Tarka said, the words coming out before she could stop them. "She was defending our home. The soldiers burned everything." "I am sorry," Kendrick said, and the sincerity in his voice made her throat tighten. "That should not have happened." "None of it should have happened, but it did." "Yes, it did. And now we are here, you and I, trying to live in the aftermath." He brushed crumbs from his hands. "I cannot change the past, neither can you, but maybe we can make this small corner of the world a little better. Maybe that is enough." Days turned into weeks, and a routine developed. Tarka fell into the rhythm of farm life, finding comfort in the predictability. She learned which chickens were broody and which were friendly. She learned the cow's name was Blossom and the goat's was Thistle. She helped Kendrick repair a section of fence, and he complimented her strength when she lifted posts he had expected to struggle with. He never touched her without asking first. If he needed to show her something, he would say, "May I guide your hands?" If he passed close to her in the house, he made sure she had space. He kept his word about her room, never entering without her permission. In the evenings, after the work was done and they had eaten, they would sit by the fire and talk. Kendrick told her about his childhood on a farm much like this one, about his parents who had died of fever the winter before he enlisted. Tarka told him about growing up in her clan, about learning to hunt and fish, about the festivals they held at the turning of seasons. "You miss it?" Kendrick asked one evening. "You're home." "Every day," Tarka said honestly. "I miss my aunt and my cousins. I miss the language, the songs, the smell of the longhouse fires. I miss being around my own people." "Do you think you will ever be able to go back?" Tarka shook her head. "I am the hostage that keeps the peace. If I leave, the treaty is broken. And even if it were not, my clan sent me away. I was expendable. I do not think they want me back." Kendrick was quiet for a moment, staring into the fire. "You are not expendable," he said finally, his voice rough. "You are a person with value and skill and intelligence. What they did to you was wrong. It kept the peace. It stopped the killing. It should not have required sacrificing you." The intensity in his voice surprised her, and when she looked at him, she saw anger there but not directed at her. He was angry on her behalf, she realized. The understanding sent warmth through her chest, a feeling she did not quite know how to name. As summer deepened, Tarka found herself changing in small ways. She laughed more easily. She slept without nightmares. She began to take pride in the work they did together, in the garden flourishing under their care, in the way Blossom's coat grew sleek and shiny. She began to watch Kendrick when he was not looking, noticing the way his muscles moved when he worked, the way he hummed tunelessly when he was content, the gentleness in his hands when he handled the animals. She began to realize, with something like panic, that she was attracted to him. Not just grateful for his kindness, not just comfortable with his presence, but genuinely, deeply attracted. She wanted to touch him, to be touched by him. She wanted to know if his beard was as soft as it looked, if his hands would be gentle on her skin the way they were gentle with everything else. It was forbidden, dangerous. Orcs and humans did not fall in love. Such unions were taboo on both sides, the children caught between worlds, belonging nowhere. And yet her heart did not care about taboos or danger. It wanted what it wanted. One afternoon in late summer, a storm rolled in fast, catching them in the far field. They ran for the barn, laughing and soaked through by the time they tumbled inside. Lightning cracked across the sky, and thunder followed immediately after, so loud it shook the walls. The animals shifted nervously in their stalls. Tarka pushed her wet hair back from her face, breathing hard, and looked up to find Kendrick staring at her. His shirt was plastered to his body, his hair dripping, and there was something in his eyes she had not seen before. Something hungry and yearning and carefully restrained. "Tarka," he said, his voice barely audible over the rain hammering on the roof. "Yes. I need to tell you something, and I need you to know you can say no, that nothing has to change, that you are safe here no matter what." Her heart began to pound. "Tell me." "I have feelings for you. Romantic feelings. I think I have had them for a while now, but I kept telling myself I was imagining it, that it was inappropriate, that you were here because you had no choice, and I should not burden you with something like that." The words came out in a rush, like he had been holding them back for too long. "But I cannot keep pretending anymore. I care about you. I think you are brave and kind and funny and beautiful. I love the way you sing while you work. I love how you talk to the chickens like they are your friends. I love your strength and your honesty. And I needed you to know, even if nothing comes of it." Tarka stood frozen, rainwater dripping onto the barn floor, her mind racing. He thought she was beautiful. He loved the way she sang. He had feelings for her, the same impossible feelings she had been trying to deny in herself. "You think I am beautiful," she whispered. "I am an orc." "You are Tarka," Kendrick said fiercely. "And yes, I think you are the most beautiful woman I have ever known." Something broke open inside her, a dam giving way. She closed the distance between them in 3 strides and kissed him, rising on her toes to reach his mouth, her hands gripping his shoulders. For a moment, he went absolutely still with shock, and then he was kissing her back, his arms coming around her, pulling her close. His beard was soft against her skin, and his mouth was warm, and he tasted like rain and summer and coming home. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kendrick touched her face with trembling fingers. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Are you absolutely sure? I do not want you to feel obligated. I do not want you to think you have to do this." "I am sure," Tarka said, her voice steady. "I have feelings for you too. I have been trying not to, but I do. I love your kindness and your patience. I love how you treat everything with care, even the smallest things. I love your laugh and the way you look at the world like you are determined to find good in it despite everything. I love you, Kendrick." He made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob and kissed her again, deeper this time, more certain. They stood in the barn wrapped in each other's arms while the storm raged outside, and Tarka felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. But reality intruded as it always did. When the storm passed and they walked back to the house hand in hand, Tarka felt the weight of the world outside this small farm settling on her shoulders again. "They will not allow this," she said quietly. "Your people. Mine. If they find out you have feelings for me, that I have feelings for you, there will be consequences." "I know," Kendrick said, "but I am not willing to give you up. Not for their prejudice, not for their rules. You are not a hostage to me, Tarka. You are the woman I love. And if that makes me a traitor to my people, so be it. It could break the treaty, it could start the war again, or it could be proof that peace is possible." He squeezed her hand. "We do not have to tell anyone yet. We can take our time, figure out what we want, how to navigate this. But I am not giving up on you, on us." They were careful at first. When Kendrick went into town for supplies, Tarka stayed home. When neighbors passed by occasionally, they saw only a man and the orc woman he had been assigned to oversee, nothing more. But in private, in the house and barn and fields where no one could see, they were simply 2 people in love. Kendrick courted her properly, bringing her wildflowers from the meadow, teaching her to read using his small collection of books, dancing with her in the kitchen to music only they could hear. Tarka made him laugh with her dry observations about everything, mended his clothes with stitches she learned from her aunt, braided leather cords into bracelets for his wrists. They learned each other's bodies slowly, with patience and joy, finding pleasure in the smallest touches, the quietest moments. Autumn arrived, painting the trees gold and crimson. They harvested the garden together, preserving food for winter, and Tarka felt a deep satisfaction in the work. This was her home now, she realized. Not by force, not by obligation, but by choice. She loved this farm, this life, this man, but the outside world would not let them hide forever. In early autumn, a representative from the human settlement arrived at the farm, a stern woman named Magistrate Holloway. Kendrick met her on the porch, and Tarka stood behind him, her stomach knotted with anxiety. "Mr. Ashford," the magistrate said, her voice clipped and formal. "I am here to inspect the conditions of the treaty hostage and ensure compliance with the peace terms." "Of course," Kendrick said calmly. "Please come in." The magistrate walked through the house with a critical eye, noting the cleanliness, the well-stocked pantry, the orderliness. She questioned Tarka directly about her treatment, whether she had been harmed or mistreated. Tarka answered carefully, truthfully, saying she was well fed and safe and allowed to move freely on the property. "You seem content," the magistrate observed, her eyes sharp. "That is unusual for your kind in captivity." "I am treated well," Tarka said, keeping her voice neutral. "Mr. Ashford is a fair man, indeed." The magistrate turned to Kendrick. "The council wanted me to remind you that she is a hostage, not a guest. She is here to ensure Orc compliance with the treaty. If you have grown too lenient, if she has too much freedom, it undermines the purpose of her placement." Kendrick's jaw tightened, but his voice remained level. "She works hard on this farm. She contributes. Treating her poorly would serve no purpose except cruelty." "Some might say cruelty is what keeps the peace," the magistrate said coldly. "Orcs respect strength, not kindness." "Then perhaps we have been approaching peace wrong," Kendrick replied. "Perhaps if we treated each other with basic decency, we would not need hostages at all." The magistrate's expression hardened. "You are dangerously close to sedition, Mr. Ashford. I suggest you remember your duty to your people." After she left, Kendrick paced the kitchen like a caged animal. "They want me to be cruel to you," he said, his voice shaking with anger. "They want me to treat you like a prisoner, like a thing, to prove some point about human dominance." "They are afraid," Tarka said quietly. "Afraid that if one human treats one Orc with kindness, it will unravel everything they believe about why the war was necessary. It is easier to hate an enemy than to see them as people." "I will not do it. I will not hurt you to make them comfortable. I know." Tarka took his hands. "But we need to be more careful. They are watching now." They tried. They maintained appearances, keeping distance when anyone might see, behaving like mere housemates. But in a small community, gossip traveled fast. Someone had seen Kendrick smile at Tarka too warmly. Someone had noticed that she sang while she worked, hardly the behavior of a miserable hostage. Questions were asked. Suspicions grew. The crisis came on a cold morning in late autumn. Tarka was feeding the chickens when she heard horses approaching, 3 riders moving fast. She recognized the lead rider immediately, and her blood went cold. It was Gruck, a warrior from her clan, one of the chief's enforcers. Kendrick came out of the barn, his body going tense when he saw the Orcs. Tarka walked to stand beside him, her heart pounding. "Tarka," Gruck said, his voice a deep rumble. He spoke in Orcish, which Kendrick could not understand. "We have come to check on you. The clan wants to know if you are well, if you have been harmed." "I am well," Tarka replied in the same language, keeping her face carefully neutral. "I have been treated fairly." Gruck's eyes narrowed, scanning the farm, taking in the neat buildings, the healthy animals, the look of care and prosperity. "You look well fed, soft even. Has he made you his slave?" "No, I work the farm alongside him. I am not mistreated." "Not mistreated," Gruck repeated, his tone skeptical. And yet you remain. You do not try to escape. You do not send word asking for rescue. The elders wonder if you have forgotten your people." Tarka felt anger flare in her chest. "I was sent here as a hostage to keep the peace. I am doing my duty. If I escaped, the treaty would be broken and more people would die. Or have you forgotten why I was sent in the first place?" Gruck dismounted, walking closer, and his companions followed. They were all larger than Tarka, warriors where she was not. Kendrick shifted slightly, positioning himself partially in front of her, and Gruck noticed. His eyes locked on Kendrick with sudden, sharp focus. "The human protects you," he said in Orcish. Then, switching to heavily accented Common, he addressed Kendrick directly. "You care for her. This is not duty, this is something else." "She is under my protection," Kendrick said carefully. "I take that responsibility seriously." "Protection," Gruck said, his voice loaded with meaning. "I see." He stepped closer, and Tarka saw Kendrick's hand move toward the knife at his belt. "Do you know what happens to orcs who lie with humans, warrior? They are cast out, exiled. They become clanless, and the clanless do not survive long." "We have done nothing to violate the treaty," Tarka said, her voice strong despite her fear. "I remain here as agreed. The peace holds." "The peace holds," Gruck agreed, "but at what cost? You smell like him, Tarka, like human, like this farm. You have forgotten yourself." He spat on the ground. "The elders suspected. They sent me to confirm. Now I have." "What will you do?" Tarka asked, lifting her chin. "I will report what I have seen. What they decide is not for me to say." Gruck mounted his horse again, his face hard. "But if I were you, I would prepare for consequences, for both of you." They rode away, and Tarka stood frozen, watching them disappear into the trees. Kendrick pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "What did he say?" "What is going to happen?" Tarka told him, translating the conversation, and felt him go rigid with tension. "They will exile you, possibly, or they will demand I return to the clan for punishment. Or they will use this as an excuse to break the treaty, claim that you violated the terms by betting me." "I will not let them take you," Kendrick said fiercely. "I will not let them hurt you. You cannot fight an entire clan. Then we run. We take what we can carry and we go somewhere far away, somewhere neither of our people can reach us." Tarka pulled back to look at his face. "You would leave your home, your farm, everything you have built." "I would leave anything for you," Kendrick said, his eyes burning with intensity. "You are my home now, Tarka. Wherever you are, that is where I belong." She kissed him then, hard and desperate, memorizing the feeling of his arms around her, the scent of him, the solid warmth of his body. "I love you," she whispered. "Whatever happens, I need you to know that. I love you more than I thought I could ever love anyone." "I love you too," Kendrick said. "We will find a way through this, together." They spent the next 2 days preparing. Kendrick gathered supplies, non-perishable food, blankets, tools they could carry. He withdrew his savings from the bank in town, ignoring the strange looks he received. Tarka packed her few possessions and helped make traveling packs. They did not talk about where they would go, only that they would leave before anyone could come for them. But on the 3rd day, it was not an orc raiding party that arrived. It was Magistrate Holloway, accompanied by a contingent of armed men from the settlement. "Kendrick Ashford," she called from horseback, her voice ringing with authority. "You are accused of violating the terms of the peace treaty by engaging in inappropriate relations with the hostage assigned to your care. The council has voted to take custody of the orc and reassign her. You will turn her over immediately." Kendrick stepped out onto the porch, Tarka beside him. "No," the magistrate's eyebrows rose. "No, Tarka is not property to be reassigned. She is a person and she stays where she chooses to stay. She is a hostage and a guarantee of peace. She does not get to choose." Then your peace is built on slavery, Kendrick said flatly, and I want no part of it. The armed men shifted uneasily, hands moving toward weapons. The magistrate's face hardened. You are committing treason, Mr. Ashford. Stand aside or be arrested. Arrest me then. I am not moving. Tarka stepped forward, placing herself between Kendrick and the armed men. Wait, she said, her voice carrying across the yard. Please wait. Tarka, no, Kendrick said, but she shook her head. This is wrong, Tarka said, addressing the magistrate directly. All of it is wrong. I was sent here as a hostage because your people and mine could not find a better way to trust each other. I was supposed to be insurance, a life held in exchange for peace. But Kendrick treated me with kindness and respect. He gave me a home, a place to work and rest and live like a person. And yes, we fell in love. That should not be a crime. That should be proof that your people and mine can coexist, can see each other as equals. You are not equals, the magistrate said coldly. You are an orc. I am a person, Tarka said, her voice rising. I think and feel and love just as you do. My mother died defending her home from human soldiers. Kendrick lost friends to orc warriors. We both carry the scars of this war, but we chose to build something better instead of clinging to hate. If you punish us for that, you are saying that peace is only possible through fear and subjugation. Is that really the world you want? There was a long silence. Some of the armed men were looking uncomfortable now, not meeting each other's eyes. The magistrate's face was unreadable. Then a new voice spoke up, one of the men at the back. She has a point, magistrate. My brother came home from the war different, broken. He drinks himself into oblivion every night trying to forget what he saw. Maybe the lass is right. Maybe there is a better way. This is not up for debate, the magistrate snapped, but there was less certainty in her voice now. Actually, it is, another voice said. An older man stepped forward, someone Tarka recognized from previous trips to town. Master Finnegan, a farmer who had been kind to her the few times they had met. My land borders Ashford's. I have seen them working together over the summer. I have seen an orc woman tending a garden and laughing and living a peaceful life. I have seen Kendrick happier than he has been since he came back from the war. If that violates the treaty, maybe the treaty is the problem. More murmurs of agreement. The magistrate looked around, her authority visibly slipping. The council will not approve this, she said, but she sounded uncertain now. Then the council can come out here and explain why love and peace are threats, Kendrick said. In the meantime, Tarka stays. The magistrate stared at them for a long moment, then wheeled her horse around. This is not over, she said, but she was riding away and the armed men followed her, some of them nodding respectfully to Kendrick and Tarka as they passed. Master Finnegan lingered behind. You have got people on your side, son, he said quietly. More than you know. A lot of us are tired of the hate, tired of the fear. You two might have started something important today. After he left, Kendrick and Tarka stood together on the porch, watching the sun begin its descent toward the horizon. It is not over, Tarka said quietly. They will come back. Or my clan will come, or both. I know, Kendrick said, but we stood our ground and we were not alone. Over the following weeks, the situation evolved in ways neither of them had expected. Master Finnegan spread word through the settlement about what he had witnessed, about the magistrate's heavy-handedness, about Kendrick's defiance. More people came to visit the farm, some curious, some skeptical, but all of them walking away with a different perspective after seeing Tarka and Kendrick working side by side, clearly devoted to each other. Meanwhile, word reached the Orc clan about what Gruck had reported and about Tarka's refusal to be taken by either side. The elders were divided. Some called for her exile, but others, including her aunt, argued that she had fulfilled her duty. She had kept the peace. If the humans did not object to her presence with Kendrick, why should the clan care? In late autumn, a delegation arrived at the farm, but this time it was different. The magistrate was there, but so was Master Finnegan and several other prominent settlers. From the orc side came Gruck again, but also an elder named Masha, an ancient female orc with keen eyes and a reputation for wisdom. They gathered in Kendrick's yard, human and orc standing on opposite sides, with Kendrick and Tarka in the middle. The magistrate spoke first. The council has agreed to a compromise. Tarka may remain here with Kendrick Ashford, provided the orc clan consents and the peace holds. Elder Masha grunted. The clan has decided that Tarka fulfilled her duty. She may choose her own path now. But if she chooses the human, she cannot return to the clan. She will be severed. Tarka felt the words like a blow, but she had expected this. I understand, she said in Orcish. I accept the terms. There is one more thing, Master Finnegan said, a small smile on his weathered face. Some of us have been talking. If you two are going to be together officially, you ought to make it proper. Legal. We would be willing to witness a marriage if you are willing to have one. Kendrick turned to Tarka, his eyes wide with surprise and hope. Will you marry me, Tarka? Not because of treaties or politics, but because I love you and want to spend my life with you. Tarka felt tears prick her eyes, but she was smiling. Yes, she said. Yes, I will marry you. The wedding took place a week later, in the yard of the farm under a clear autumn sky. It was a small ceremony, witnessed by a handful of human settlers who supported them, and, surprisingly, by Elder Masha and one other orc, Tarka's aunt, who had traveled in secret against the wishes of the clan to see her niece wed. Tarka wore a dress that Kendrick had commissioned from a seamstress in town, green like her skin, embroidered with gold thread. Kendrick wore his best clothes and looked so handsome it made her heart ache. They spoke vows in both common and Orcish, pledging their lives and hearts to each other. Master Finnegan officiated, his voice solemn and joyful at once. When Kendrick kissed his bride, the gathered witnesses cheered, human and orc voices mingling together in celebration. Tarka's aunt wept openly, embracing her niece and whispering blessings in Orcish. Elder Masha, before she left, clasped Tarka's hand and said quietly, You are brave, young one. You may be severed from the clan, but you have not dishonored us. Live well. After the ceremony, after the small feast they shared with their guests, after everyone had departed and the farm was quiet again, Kendrick carried Tarka over the threshold of their home. She laughed, her arms around his neck, her heart so full she thought it might burst. We did it, she whispered. We actually did it. We did, Kendrick agreed, setting her down gently and cupping her face in his hands. You are my wife. I still cannot quite believe it. Believe it, Tarka said, pulling him down for a kiss. I am yours and you are mine. Nothing will ever change that. That night, they made love as husband and wife, gentle and passionate and filled with the joy of two people who had found each other against all odds. Afterward, lying tangled together in their bed, Kendrick traced the lines of Tarka's face with his fingertips. What are you thinking? She asked. I am thinking that I was sent to war to fight orcs, to kill and be killed. I came home broken, not knowing what my life was supposed to be. And then you arrived, frightened and alone, and somehow you became the best thing that ever happened to me. I am thinking that the world is strange and beautiful and full of impossible things. Like an orc and a human falling in love, Tarka said softly. Exactly like that. Winter came, blanketing the farm in snow. Kendrick and Tarka worked together to keep the animals warm and fed, to maintain the house, to survive the cold months. They spent long evenings by the fire, reading aloud to each other, planning for the spring planting, talking about the future. In those quiet moments, Tarka sometimes thought about her clan, about the life she had left behind. She missed her people, missed the language and the traditions. But when she looked at Kendrick, at the home they had built together, she knew she had made the right choice. Love was worth the sacrifice. Peace was worth the risk. Spring returned, as it always did, bringing new growth and new possibilities. Tarka discovered she was pregnant, and the joy on Kendrick's face when she told him was something she would treasure forever. They stood together in the garden they had planted, surrounded by green shoots pushing up through the earth, and Kendrick placed his hand on her belly with such tenderness it made her cry. "Our child," he said, wonder in his voice. "Part of both of us. Part of both worlds," Tarka agreed. Maybe that is how real peace begins. Not with treaties or hostages, but with families, with love that crosses boundaries. News of Tarka's pregnancy spread through the settlement and, eventually, to the Orc clan. Reactions were mixed, but there was also curiosity. A child of both human and orc, the first of its kind in this region. What would such a child mean for the future? In late summer, Tarka gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She had her father's brown hair and her mother's green-tinged skin, tiny tusks just beginning to emerge, and the most beautiful eyes Tarka had ever seen. They named her Kira, a name that worked in both common and orcish. Kendrick held his daughter with trembling hands, tears streaming down his face. "She is perfect," he whispered. "She is absolutely perfect." Tarka, exhausted but radiantly happy, watched her husband cradle their child and felt a sense of completeness she had never imagined possible. They were a family now, the three of them, bound by love and hope and the determination to build a better world. As Kira grew, visitors came to see the remarkable child, the living symbol of peace between two peoples. Some came with hostility, but most came with wonder. Children, both human and orc, were less bound by old hatreds, and they played together in the yard while their parents watched warily at first, then with growing acceptance. Kendrick and Tarka's farm became a meeting place, a neutral ground where humans and orcs could interact without violence. It was not always easy. There were arguments, misunderstandings, moments of tension, but there was also laughter, shared meals, slowly building trust. One evening, 3 years after Tarka had first arrived as a terrified hostage, she and Kendrick sat on their porch watching Kira play with a group of children in the yard. Human children and orc children, chasing each other and giggling, not caring about the differences between them. "Do you remember when I first came here?" Tarka asked, leaning against Kendrick's shoulder. "I remember," Kendrick said, his arm around her waist. "You were scared and angry and trying so hard to be brave. I thought you would hurt me. I thought all humans were monsters. And I had thought all orcs were savages. We were both wrong." "We were," Tarka agreed. "The world is more complicated than we were taught, more beautiful too." Kendrick kissed the top of her head. "I am grateful every day that they sent you to me. I know that is a terrible thing to say, given that you were forced to come, but I cannot help it. You changed my life. You gave me purpose and love and hope. You gave me a family. You treated me like a queen when I was meant to be a hostage," Tarka said, echoing the words she had heard him say to a visitor once, when asked how he had won her heart. "You saw me as a person when everyone else saw me as a pawn. That is why I fell in love with you." They sat together as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, watching their daughter play with children who represented both their peoples. The peace was still fragile, still contested in some quarters, but it held. And every day it held, it grew a little stronger. In the years that followed, more mixed couples formed, hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence. Kendrick and Tarka's farm remained a gathering place, a symbol of what was possible when people chose love over hate, understanding over fear. They had 2 more children, a son and another daughter, and their family became a cornerstone of the growing community. The war did not resume. The peace that had begun with one frightened orc woman sent as a hostage and one lonely human veteran who chose kindness over cruelty spread slowly outward, transforming the region. It was not perfect. There were still those on both sides who clung to old hatreds. But the next generation grew up differently, with friends and neighbors from both peoples, and they could not understand why their parents had ever been enemies. Tarka never forgot where she came from or what it had cost her to choose her own path. She taught her children the Orcish language and traditions, making sure they knew and honored both halves of their heritage. Kendrick supported this, encouraging his children to be proud of everything they were. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Kendrick gave Tarka a gift, a beautifully carved wooden plaque that he hung above their fireplace. It bore an inscription in both Common and Orcish. "Love builds what war destroys." Tarka traced the letters with her fingers, tears in her eyes. "It is perfect," she said. "It is exactly right." "It is what you taught me," Kendrick said, pulling her into his arms, "what we learned together, and what we will keep teaching for as long as we live." They kissed, surrounded by the sounds of their children playing, the smell of dinner cooking, all the ordinary miracles of a life built on love and courage. Tarka had been sent as a peace offering to a stranger, a sacrifice to keep a treaty. Instead, she had found a partner, a home, and a future worth fighting for. She had been treated like a queen, and in return she had given Kendrick a kingdom, a family, and a legacy that would outlast them both. The peace held. The love endured. And in a small farmhouse on the edge of the frontier, 2 people who should have been enemies showed the world a different way forward, one day at a time.